World of entrepreneurship has completely changed with the advent of AI. And today we have a brilliant guest to help us understand how that has changed, a gentleman by the name of Ament. Max has been around, like myself and Matt, for a couple of years and seen a couple of different waves of entrepreneurship. He's the founder of a new business called Causa Prima. So first of all, let me welcome Max. Max, welcome to the Breakneck Podcast. Where are you coming from today?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm in Madrid, Spain.
Fantastic. So, Max, you and I go back a long way, so I know your story, but maybe give us a little bit of your entrepreneurial heritage so folks get a sense of who you are.
Happy to do so. Let's start with video games. I always want to be a video game developer. That didn't work out. So the second best thing I think that every good German engineer does, I went to SAP and instead built enterprise software. So yeah, did that for 2 years. Then happened to be accounts payable and accounts receivable payments software within SAP. And yeah, as I said, after 2 years, got this first time, this entrepreneurial itching, I guess, left SAP and had my first startup in Germany, completely bootstrapped because little did I know that venture capital existed. So we did it this old-fashioned way with revenues and profits and then hiring people. And the company that I built was an accounts payable automation company because that's kind of all I knew. I knew accounts payable, so I built accounts payable software. Went to San Francisco as fast as I could and sold the company. The company serviced the largest corporations on this planet. So the Apples, the Intels, the Siemens, those were, some still are, the customers of this very first company. Did a little detour into QR codes while I was in San Francisco, which was complete nonsense in 2007, I think, because there wasn't even a fucking iPhone that could read QR codes. So that was nonsense. Then back to enterprise software and then built a company that Ian and myself worked together on called Taulia. Got a little bit of a taste for venture capital. And so did the opposite of bootstrapping, raised, I think, about 250 million in total from Matrix and Lakestar and Propel Ventures, some really good supporters. And the company did supply chain finance, working capital. So big companies, enterprise companies and their supply chains, making sure the suppliers get money in their hands instead of waiting 30, 60, 90 days. About 4 years ago, I was already back in Europe. About 4 years ago, we sold the company to SAP as a unicorn. And then, I was already back because my wife is Spanish. So you can only keep a Spaniard out of Spain for so long. So when she saw the first opportunity, that was like back to Europe. And then in Europe, I built another startup called Centrifuge. Centrifuge, we almost invented this tokenization real world asset space. Definitely the term real world assets because only stupid Germans could come up with such a term. So the RWA's real world assets was ours. And that's what Centrifuge does. We tokenize things from the real world, put it on a blockchain. And the first asset, because I'm a one-trick pony, was obviously an invoice. That's what we tokenized and brought on a blockchain and then securitized and financed. Yeah, Centrifuge did that for a while. Now run by a mutual friend of Ian and myself called Baji. She's running a Centrifuge now. It's amazing. And became a wannabe investor for a few years. So did a few too many angel checks, I guess. But saw a lot, actually, on the fintech, crypto side of the house. And then about 6 months ago, after a trip to San Francisco, actually, decided done with this investing. And I had a phase where I want to be a VC. That didn't go well, so went to San Francisco as a wannabe venture capitalist and came back of like, fuck that shit, I'm building. So that was the start of Causa Prima, end of last year, beginning of this year.
All right. We'll go back to some of that, but give us the pitch on Causa Prima. I have been watching it from afar, and those who listen in know I'm big on agentic commerce. It may or may not fit into that space, but it's certainly related. So tell us about it. What's going on?
Yeah. So, I mean, depends a little bit on the definition of agentic commerce, but we'll get to that. The observation end of last year was, well, this agentic AI thing seems to be real. It actually happens within the enterprise. So that was like, wow, okay, want to do something there. We saw companies like, I'm very close to companies like Stoot that do accounts receivable in the enterprise agentically. Companies like Rillet, Campfire, closing the books and many other things agentically. Expense management companies like an agent collects the receipts and bangs out the emails. They're all great, works, customer pay, but we felt there's like one major shortcoming. It's an agent, does magic, and on the other side is an idiot like us. On the other side is a human being that is like going on vacation, is definitely not as smart as these agents, and just a bottleneck. So for us, naturally, okay, we got to find something where agents collaborate with other agents. And then, Ian, you know that naturally for me was like, it's sort of a supplier network. It's sort of accounts payable of one company, accounts receivable of another company. Solve the most boring shit that happens between companies, the sending of an invoice, the receiving of an invoice, the whatever, the fixing of an invoice. Get rid of that, end that noise on both sides, on the supplier side and on the buyer side, to get to the point where actually you can pay that baby. And then that's where the fun, the Act 2 actually starts with Causa Prima, because that's where, well, don't those agents look in each other's eyes? It's like, well, it's a net 30 invoice, so you got to wait 29 days. Well, guess what? Let those agents match, negotiate what fits both parties. Let them come up with offers that fit the working capital requirement of a large enterprise like Home Depot. And on the other side, Jack the plumber. There's a happy middle. There is an equilibrium. And that's what Causa Prima does. An agentic network to solve that boring shit to get to the actual payment. Because, I mean, if you're honest, the only thing that matters in B2B is just one thing. Is getting fucking paid. The rest doesn't matter. And that's what we go after.
Max, talk to people a little bit about the scale of, like, if you've never played in procurement or AP or AR, particularly in the B2B world, maybe you don't have an understanding. I'll just give a very basic stat. Typically in the US, a third of GDP comes from business to business commerce. So just think about those dollars flying around. But the scale, certainly some of the companies we worked over the years, it's just enormous.
No, you're right. I mean, look, I mentioned Home Depot, which I have nothing, as a customer of Taulia or a previous company. That's public knowledge. I think Home Depot, if my memory serves me right, has 100 billion in spend. 100 billion that they pay to suppliers. Many of them small, medium businesses, many mid-market, mid-sized companies, but they wait 30, 60 days for their money. So, I mean, those 100 billion need to be financed somehow. So Jack the plumber is my standard example. On the other side, got to wait 30 days to make payroll. Got to make 30 days to invest in his business. But you are correct. So the global GDP, and it depends how often, because invoices turn around every 30 days or every 35 days on average. The global GDP is not a bad measure for the size of the problem here. That's what we talk about.
Yeah.
And kind of the fucking biggest problem on this planet, if you think about it.
So what happens, wave your magic wand, we'll fast forward, used to be 10 years, right? But it's 3 years, it's AI time. We'll fast forward in 3 years and Causa Prima is on fire. It's working. Yeah. You're having impact at scale. What's different about the world? What's magical here?
It's magical that agents are sitting in every company, are connected with those accounts payable, receivable systems, have context, and just pay and get paid whatever makes sense in the moment. So Jack the plumber, no Home Depot have to think about it. It just happens for the right price. And me as a business, I always have the money that I need.
So looking at the scale of the problem, it's the size of all GDP on the earth, whatever, the EDP, whatever, Earth Domestic Product. But in terms of the value, two places where agents can make an impact. One, they can reduce the cost to do this. So you have 25 people in your finance team, you could go with 5. That's one way of
There's one component. We did, right.
But then there's the other one, which you mentioned, hey, let's renegotiate payment terms. And instead of net 60, you can be paid net 15 for a 0.5% fee.
Exactly.
When 0.5% of the Earth's domestic product is an enormous number also, it might be bigger than all of the finance people combined as well.
That's what we think.
What do you feel? What do you feel is the bigger?
Yeah, I mean, Matt, what you just described is our business model. So in essence, yes, we believe there are, and we can debate about tasks or jobs getting replaced, debate for the last few months, but let's stick with tasks. Obviously, from the 50 people in Akron, Ohio, they do accounts payable for large corporate, a certain portion of them can be assigned to other more meaningful, more strategic tasks. We're not charging for that. For now, because we think the opportunity is much bigger, we charge for early payments realized. So either the two parties that I mentioned before agree on an earlier payment where money flows earlier for a discount. We take a little cut of the discount because we negotiated. We help matching the two parties. Or if one party doesn't want to pay, Jack the plumber still likes to be paid early. Well, we bring in third-party capital where we finance Jack and make money on that. We believe that opportunity is at least in double-digit basis points of the global GDP. Let me do that for normal, not idiot humans like me. What the number that Ian and myself used back in the days in terms of discount was the opportunities you can, if you have $1 billion and spend, if you spend $1 billion with your suppliers, if you buy for $1 billion, there's at least $1 million in discounts to be had. We believe in an agentic world for a variety of reasons. That opportunity is much bigger. So back of the napkin, it's a few million per billion. So if I'm a company like, go back to Home Depot, just from a size perspective, and I have $100 billion in spend, there's a few $100 million in bottom line discounts that can be achieved for Home Depot. Jack is happy as well. The 30,000 Jacks are happy. And we take a certain cut. That's our fee, which could be really meaningful if you look at those numbers.
Yeah, for a few $100 million per business is pretty meaningful. Ian and I have been having, well, not a debate, but I think something that has really been very important about the AI thing globally. And now that you're talking about agents in a real grounded situation, I think we can actually ask real questions about it, which is, Sam Altman was saying in the last couple of weeks that it looks like AI might be increasing the number of jobs. And it's very hard to visualize how AI can increase jobs in most situations because we think about, hey, this person has a finance job and we're going to potentially eliminate it with an agent. But I think in the vendor financing, when you're paying, like I know companies that pay 120-day payment terms to small businesses. And if you think about the amount, you do $2 million a year as a small vendor, right? And so you're financing $700,000-800,000 on $2 million in revenue to the person, to your client, is an insane thing. You might have a gigantic multinational company with $100 billion in payments, and they're basically taking loans from their vendors who are small business owners. And it's an insane situation. And so I think that's my fundamental understanding of the value of factoring and doing these early payments. But then if you look at what happened if you took somebody who was running a great business, they went from $1 million last year, they're delivering finished goods, raw goods, labor, whatever. And instead of them having to carry a bigger and bigger loan the bigger they get, because if they go from $2 million to $3 million, they have to add another $300,000 or $400,000 of essentially a loan to their client. And you come in to factor that and to shorten it, all of those small businesses can actually grow much. So if you can unlock that, more jobs are being created. And then I would say that, then I'll get off my high horse here, that the bigger value is not the faster payment terms. That's a big number, hundreds of millions of dollars for even like one company like Home Depot. But Home Depot has big, bad vendors. And they have little, scrappy, great vendors who just can't grow. And I would say that the bigger value for a company like Home Depot, by untangling this web of long payments and all you said, get to the, is that all of their good, high value, small, scrappy vendors are going to get 10 times bigger. And they're going to have much better vendors in 2 or 3 years if they can solve these payment issues, even on tiny little ones that might not have made sense for their finance teams to go run down 2-3 years ago. How do you respond?
So much. I mean, the first one is, I think it's like what you say is right. And we talk about Jevons paradox in a minute and how things get cheaper on that side. Assuming jobs are fungible to some extent, help on the other side, but we'll get that in a minute. At a minimum, even if the business are not, so from a Home Depot perspective, offering something what I just described, offering something what we did at Taulia, whether this is Causa Prima today or Taulia back, at a minimum, it keeps your supply chain healthy. At a minimum, it makes sure that Jack the plumber, to stick with my example, is not going out of business, which is in absolutely the best interest of Home Depot, because they don't want to look for the second Jack the plumber, because they're very happy with Jack the plumber. They trust him. He does the best pipes, things, whatever. So at a minimum, providing such a service so that Jack is not struggling and not going out of business is already great. The second thing is, well, giving Jack that business that maybe Jack can hire a second person and can work better, more efficient, better quality for Home Depot and then for Lowe's and for whatever as well, is as well in the best interest of Home Depot. Maybe not the Lowe's part, but definitely the Home Depot part. But you're absolutely right. I think there is, we see here where AI on the surface maybe eliminates or reassigns tasks and jobs, but this is just if you look very niche. If you take back a step, I believe then in this finance area, in the B2B area, it creates a massive amount of jobs.
Yeah, and like this is such a good example of running down how does AI create more jobs? Because yeah, you might eliminate at Home Depot 30 or 40 people on the AP team, right? Imagine they're just doing this stuff, but that's across $100 billion of spend, and they go from spending $100 billion they get better vendors who are able to grow more quickly. That means Home Depot is now a more effective business. Their vendors hire more people, and Home Depot gets bigger as well. And that should be the real incentive for fixing all of this friction that exists in the economy, is that it's just preventing growth. And if we go and use AI on our highest value problems, those are also the things that are the highest friction parts of business that if they were eliminated, have the most value and upside. So it's like, it's almost like a perfect case study of AI eliminating jobs in a way that creates many more jobs. Like the lever that you have, this $100 billion lever, is so big that, like, eliminating a few jobs is just a rounding error on the impact.
I agree. Look, I'm not pretending that what Causa Prima does, or there's many other players that's on the same level as curing cancer. By no means, but there is, when it comes to really finance, this is definitely a use case that makes so much fucking sense. It's a no-brainer.
As you see, well, let me give a little bit of perspective on it, given our heritage together. If I really distill it down into very simplistic description, it's a scaled version of what we were doing in the past. I'm doing it a disservice that way, right? But just take it that way as an assumption. What makes me very excited is the scalability about it. And then there's another element that Matt and I consistently talk about, which is the arrival of AI into business is slowly re-architecting the way businesses are operating and running. And so the question for you, Max, is as you see Causa Prima kind of expand and gain momentum, what do you think is going to happen within those businesses? Matt said, look, I think the supplier network's going to get stronger and more robust, and that's going to help the business. Is there internal architecture within these large businesses that you think will change, or patterns of working?
Yeah, look, I mean, if we do our job right at Causa Prima, let's stick with Home Depot because we talk about Home Depot. If we do our job right with someone like Home Depot and our agents optimize their accounts payable, meaning an invoice comes in and all that mess that we discussed before is solved in an easier way. Well, first of all, it's a people thing. You don't need as many people anymore, but there's as well a software thing. So if you use a legacy software that does certain accounts payable tasks, the ERP system, 80-90% of those screens, and I'm guilty as charged, that have been created over the years, you might not need them anymore. And look, I'm not saying an SAP goes away or whatever. I'm just saying a company like SAP or Workday, because people always say I pick on SAP. I don't. Workday, NetSuite, whatever, like incumbents, they just got to rethink a little bit how they sell. It's definitely not a seat thing anymore. It's definitely not a accounts payable uses those 5 transactions and 12 screens anymore. It's just a different offering as a system of record that is open for agents, and then companies like Causa Prima and a million others can put their agents on top to optimize flows. So that is, I think, a major thing that needs to happen in those software companies. And with that, because it's a big part of Home Depot, is their ERP backbone, how those large corporates, enterprises think about the ERP stack or the software stack. That's what I think.
Talk to us a bit more about that. You can pick Workday, SAP, whomever you care. And you said it, right? This per seat thing is going away.
Yeah.
If you were running one of those businesses and you're looking at the Causa Primas of the world, and you're not the only ones nibbling around various parts of their business, what would you be doing?
It's interesting. I a few weeks ago, a mutual friend of mine invited of us, John Keating, invited me to a little presentation where that very same question got asked. So what's the right approach for a software company that we talked about? Is it the Salesforce approach where we're headless, we're open for business, well, like whatever Benioff says? It's like, yes, we have APIs for years, and now we just make them a little bit more agent accessible. Or is it the opposite, which SAP claimed a few weeks ago? They backtracked. Is it, no, agents need to go through our agentic system. It got to be, and then somewhere in the middle, maybe Workday, where it's not really clear what they did. There's something awkward and weird. I just didn't understand it. But so I don't know where it goes. I'm a fan of open ecosystems in general. So letting agents for a cost, that's fine. Like agents need to pay them as well. If they access data, do something with the data and give it back to you or do something with it, there got to be a fee for that. But I think a system needs to be open. Like as a customer, I should be able to choose anybody, whether it is a human being, a third party, or an agent, to access my data at a certain cost. because yeah,
So
maybe
I think just providing, taking the example of a CRM or like a Salesforce, and Salesforce is always, they didn't have APIs. They had this thing called Apex, which was
I remember.
Oh my God, one of the worst development environments you could ever encounter. We built some stuff for Apex over the years, and so yeah, it's these real kludgy, like to essentially access a database, not too much more elevated in most people's core use case than a spreadsheet. And I think when you talk about, Salesforce is going to be this open data model, I think that's very dangerous as the approach, is that we're going to continue to charge $250 per person for a seat per month.
That one, I don't think. That I think is over. I think it's...
And I would say the same thing for ERPs. Now, SAP is, if you do have a big ERP and like a big industrial conglomerate, that's so complex. They're not going to rip that out anytime soon. But I think for the simple kind of CRM use cases, that's going to be the first casualty. They need to go in and help me sell my product. They have to really take N+1 steps. It can't just be a list of my customers and I'm going to pay for that. They need to be really offering vetted, realistic ways to add to my users or do the next steps. And I'm not going to put this on Causa Prima on your roadmap yet, but if you look at things like vendor management, obviously there's managing payments, but which of those vendors should I expand with? Well, you already have the list of vendors. You already have the relationship with the company. You already have access to how much they're being paid. That seems like a kind of thing that the incumbents, if they do have these lists, should be helping and immediately pushing products into, which is, how do I, if I'm running a CRM, help people sell? I don't want a CRM. I want to sell, and a CRM is a tool to do that. And as this whole environment becomes more sophisticated, how do the incumbents, because you have like a lot of experience with SAP at minimum, how are they thinking about that, really extending themselves out of that kind of core shell?
Let's stick with CRM for a moment, because I mean, that's pretty much the pitch of, what's the company's name? Monaco. Monaco, like this CRM, completely like a sales system, but Monaco only wants to be paid for outcome. If we close the deal, I'm simplifying here their business model, but if the deal closed and it went through Monaco, that's when we take a cut of it. Really outcome-based pricing. And I think that's generally the answer for many of those use cases, outcome-based pricing. We do it, like we facilitate a discount or we finance an invoice, outcome-based. We fuck that one up. We don't deserve jack shit. Fine as well with me. So, and in the world of SAP, it's probably the same. It's if a certain task is achieved by the system, sometimes a little bit harder to measure. It's an invoice that's posted automatically. Is it the books are closed on time? Is it my warehouse is in order? Whatever the tasks are, finding models to charge on that. I think that is where our friends from NetSuite, SAP, Oracle all should and go there. I hear those discussions.
It is tricky to do outcome-based pricing, though, because it really requires the customer to come along. If your customer doesn't have their shit together, they can pay you every month for SaaS, but if they don't have their shit together, they're not going to help you do outcome-based pricing. So you need to profile your customer and build relationships with them, because you might spend a bunch of money to get a customer and then never achieve any outcomes due to no fault of the vendor, but because the client just is not capable. You have like a Sierra did a lot on, which is the new Brent Taylor customer support. And they did a whole lot. They said, we're going to do outcome-based pricing. I feel like they've retracted from that significantly. Because it's like, what is the outcome even? Most companies don't have an outcome they're trying to drive. They're just in there fighting fires constantly. They haven't categorized things into specific classes of outcomes that can be delivered.
You're right. I mean, look, for Sierra, I felt it's relatively, like for Zendesk, Sierra, or what's the Intercom Fin. If there's something that's really measurable other than coding tasks, but if there's something outcome measurable, it's a fucking case had been closed. I helped the customer, case closed, 50 cents here. So if you're right, and even Sierra struggles with outcome-based pricing, that's a little bit concerning, I admit.
Well, like for instance, and Dan Davies has a great book on this. What was it called? It came out earlier this year. It was the Unaccountability Machine. And but as an example, I was trying to cancel. I moved houses recently, and I was trying to cancel my internet from the old house. And so I'm on the line, and I was like, I need to cancel. And then it asked me some question, and I was like, answered it, and then it's like, well, thank you. This has been solved. And I was like, oh no, it hasn't. And then it said like, do you want a new, and then it opened a new conversation. I did the exact same thing. It said, thank you, it's been solved. And I'm like, I bet they're getting paid per close here, or that's their KPI that they're tracking. And so it is a, I like, it's very easy. Early payments is one of those outcomes, but I want to I think bring up the point that outcomes in general don't exist in a lot of companies. They're not
in a generalized sense, you mean?
Yeah, in a general sense, you can't pre-negotiate an outcome unless you had a long experience doing that. And I think the fact that you found one that works is because
it shows tremendous confidence though when you rock up and they go, well, how would you charge? And you're like, no, we know exactly how this is going to work. We're so confident in our product. Yeah. And Max, I don't know if Taulia was the first to do it, but that's the first time I ever came across gain share, as we called it back then.
Yep.
But we came across one other interesting challenge with it. Even though we were super confident, the product worked really well. We could forecast our revenue off of the scale of the supply chain. But we came across customers that couldn't buy it from. Well, were you buying it? They didn't know. We're like, no, you're not going to pay anything up front. And they're like, well, what do you mean?
Yeah, no, you're right. The budgeting is a little bit of an issue. I think the industry, like we might have been one of the first ones that did a little bit of that gain share. I think over the last 15 years, that's how long it's been since we started, I guess. Others came up with outcome-based models, even pre-AI. So I think enterprises are now more accustomed to entertain those ideas. There's a different story to be had about skin in the game. So if you give us software that does actually beautiful things for free, is it on the shelf, whatever, there is a combination. You charge a little bit for setup or a baseline fee to have some skin in the game. We all know that in the enterprise world, that's probably a smart ingredient in the sales.
Yeah, but Causa Prima is well placed to understand the dynamics around that, and it sounds like do a good job. So I'm going to bring up the topic that I'm possibly most excited about, which is agentic commerce. And I'll give you my little preamble on it, Max. So I think when people talk about agentic commerce, they're really talking for the most part about consumer commerce. Like, hey, the classic one is help me book a trip. And we, Matt and I, when was that, Matt? It was back in February, did a real-time agentic commerce. We had our agent buy a gift for my son for his birthday. And it worked out live on air. It was fantastic.
Yeah, that was the first time I'd ever seen anyone give a credit card to an agent and just say, go. And it worked, right? Contrast that to the B2B world, right? First of all, people just it's not as sexy, even though we've just talked about how enormous it is. It's got, the consumer world is messy and kind of complicated, and the way transactions happen aren't really consistent in any way. There's no real pattern. Versus B2B, which is complicated, undoubtedly, but there's patterns. With the fact that we talk about invoices and procurement cards, there's a bunch of different stuff. So is Causa Prima a fantastic example of agentic commerce?
Again, depends on the definition, but you set the stage well. I would say in the first phase, our agents do commerce. Our agents negotiate, as I said, but the actual payment as a part of commerce, if you want, in the first phase is very basic. It's like telling traditional rails to do the payment. Either this is in the corporate environment, hey, Home Depot, pay that supplier earlier, just a little bit less. Very standard. In the SMB world, it's like, hey, Mercury, here's a payment to be made, and someone will come and approve it. That is the first version because that's easier to digest still in 2026 for both constituents, for SMBs and the larger enterprises. Now, the next level, which obviously we given my little bit of a crypto background, because I do believe agents will eventually speak mostly one language. They speak credit card and ACH, I'm sure, but the main language, the Esperanto or English of agents, never thought about that bullshit, but let's do it, is crypto, is stablecoins. It's very natural to attach a wallet to an agent, and the agent can do certain things. And now I want to bring that back from the esoteric or meta level to a very precise case or two cases that we will support. One is if I'm an agent, I negotiated this early payment. Maybe I negotiated a factoring style transaction with a small, medium business. So I decided that this invoice should be financed. Well, one thing is I can collaborate with a fintech. I'm an agent, right? I can do anything. I can call HSBC, bullshit, probably not happening, and ask HSBC to finance that invoice. Or very likely that agent might tap into a decentralized finance pool where a few billion had been reserved for factoring transaction. The agent goes in there, has a zero knowledge proof that proves certain criteria of that invoice. It's with a investment grade customer. That pool releases the fund. Agent has the fund, pays the supplier early. It's swapped into fiat, obviously, for the time being, although that will go away as well. Everybody happy. Customer pays that invoice back into stablecoins, buy my receivable out of the pool. I believe that's a very, very easy to envision agentic commerce case, or at least something where agents move money in and out into tokenized assets via stablecoins. That's number one. The other one is, and again, a little bit of Natalia, if we do our job right at Causa Prima, and like paying later, paying earlier, whatever fits the working capital requirements, well, one end result is that either side has more cash lying around. So instead of in limbo somewhere and nobody can do it, there's cash. Wouldn't it be great if those very same agents see that cash lying around, know the context that for the next 72 hours, we don't need that cash. We don't need to pay salaries or another invoice. Take those 10 grand, I'm Jack the plumber, put it into a money market fund for 72 hours. Again, I don't think that will be a phone call to HSBC. I think that will be taking stables, putting it in a tokenized money market account, pulling it out 72 hours later, and then do business as usual in the payables, receivables, and payroll side. That's, I think, where in B2B I see two example use cases for agentic payments, commerce, however you want to call it.
So Max, let's jump on to the last round of questions for you, and you are uniquely placed to speak to this one. So you have a foot in the US and a foot in Europe. You've kind of seen the on-ramp to AI, I suppose, in both locations. Give us a sense of what the conversation is like in the EU, particularly amongst entrepreneurs, and what's happening in the EU, maybe that's not happening in the US and vice versa.
I mean, look, there's a few things that there is no news, and there's a few things that I'm pretty excited about that are new. There is still, unfortunately, the glass half full, the glass half empty mindset, which in the US is like, hey, what if it goes right? And here's like, okay, let's figure out first what could go wrong. That is unfortunately still from the top to the bottom down some mindset that we need to change in Europe. So we need to get to more optimism, to more what could go right attitude in Europe. That said, I'm incredibly fucking excited what smart, and I can say kids, right? I'm fucking old. What smart kids I'm seeing here in Madrid or in Germany, but like let's talk about Madrid, Spain, that are like AI pilled like everybody in San Francisco. So there is no difference. I've just been a few weeks there. There's like crazy smart people, AI first, like everything. No line of code obviously is done by hand anymore, but in a gazillion other tasks are done just agentically here by the smartest kids on this planet. So that was different 3-4 years ago. Maybe those kids didn't show, maybe they went to the US, but after COVID, incredibly amazing the talent that I see. One of the reasons why we decided to start here, to start in Madrid, have it here, office with 12 people, have an office in Germany, and then eventually go to the US for the market. But talent-wise, fucking A, it's great. Great.
Where is Europe going to consolidate, do you think? What cities are going to be the importance? Because London obviously was a big choice maybe 10 years ago, but now it's, is Madrid AI filled? Where is it going to be?
We all shit on London, but it's fucking great. I mean, there's great energy and great talent, and it's amazing. I'm every few weeks in London, and I love it. It's great. Berlin lost a little bit his drive after COVID. I think we had a great crypto run until COVID, and then everybody went to Portugal or wherever, and so Berlin feels a little bit like slowed down. Stockholm, like the Nordics in general, but Stockholm in particular, they have their moment with the Lovables, with Creandum. Shameless plug for the greatest fund that I know. They're there. So I think that is a hub. Madrid, look from a size perspective, I think it's the second or third largest city in Europe. So there's just massive talent here. And that's maybe a data point that helps as well. It is very attractive for expats. Yes, from a tax perspective, but I don't think that's the driver for someone or for most people. But from a cost of living to some extent, weather, food, but then as well, cool companies here. So our team today is here in Madrid, 12 people, I think. 11 of them are foreigners, and most of them came to Madrid for us. So that probably wasn't the case 10 years ago. Madrid wasn't cool. But we attract here people, not only we, but just cool fintech companies or companies in general, AI companies, attract foreign talent that loves to come to Madrid, lives here, and almost 996s. I mean, what is it now? 7 o'clock. And in Spain, the rumor is everybody's home. No, here the day just starts. They're working hard. It's great. And that changed.
Well, so if you're a first-time entrepreneur, it sounds like you can get what you need. Be that money, be it guidance, be it mentorship, be it a bank account, whatever it may be.
The bank account is the worst. But other than that, yes. I mean, it's still fucking nonsense how hard it is to set up a company here and get a bank account. That's the thing.
Okay.
It's another structural thing. Like here in the US, you go to Stripe Atlas, done.
Yeah.
Here,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, we are Delaware C Corp with 2 subsidiaries. What took longest? Our Spanish subsidiary. And that's a little bit sad. But it's true. And Spaniards need to take that and improve that.
Just fishing here that you might have an answer. Don't feel compelled to answer on like such a big topic, but you seem to have a sense. I mean, you've lived in London and San Francisco and Madrid and Germany and so on and so on. Do you feel like there is an emerging European sense of itself economically? Because it felt like it's just a very passive, defensive, like you said, looking at the downside culture, and you imagine some kind of optimistic. You know, you look what's happening with Russia and the collective impact of defense spending and getting enough energy for the continent and so on. Do you feel like there's an emerging sense that we have to kind of knock down some of these these structural impediments to growth? Like, is that actually happening?
In fact, 2 different questions, right? Do I sense it? In my bubble, yes. There's a lot of discussions and a lot of Europe first and EU Inc. Like the Delaware equivalent in Europe. I have a hard time understanding if it's really just my bubble or if there's really then going into the European government that those things become reality. Because there had been a decision a few months ago that this EU Inc. thing will happen in 2028. I mean, fuck my life. That's another 2 years. We have probably 5 Anthropics until that point. So
yeah,
that is not ideal. The ingredients are here. I'm not sure if we can structurally, as Europe, with the different agendas, that's above my pay grade. I'm just not smart enough to see that. I know that my bubble talks about it a lot and is excited about the change. And I'm grateful for Trump to actually woke us up. And it's like, okay, guys, you're on your own now, defense-wise, IT-wise, everything. So it's great. That helped for sure to actually get an ecosystem going that for defense.
He's created a lot of solidarity, just not with the things he leads.
Oh yeah, that helps.
What are you hearing just on the last part about local large language model creators? I mean, Fable 5 got turned off all of a sudden and nobody in Europe had access. Well, none of us did, but there's a threat now that you're not going to have access potentially.
No, absolutely. I talk about my domain because that's the one I know the best. Yeah. An enterprise in Europe. And by the way, the same is true for the US. From the conversations I have, an enterprise cannot rely on a frontier model because look, Fable 5 got shut off for the US as well for a while. It was just done, right? So if I'm Home Depot, again, sticking to our virtual example here, if I'm Home Depot, do I rely on like a software vendor that relies on Anthropic as a model? For reliability, is it tomorrow still available and will that my product works? And B, do I really want to send all my data to those guys? Like all my invoices, my bank account, I don't know. So I do believe from the beginning that an enterprise, if I'm selling into enterprise, you have to have an option, the preferred option of some fine-tuned localized model. And that's what we do. So you have to have that option where you have an open source model that you fine-tune, adjust, customize, whatever the fucking words are, to make it happen.
So Causa Prima has its own model?
we're working on it. So right now we work with the frontier models and some open source models, but we're fine tuning for the use cases, for the specific use cases.
Fantastic.
No, I wonder if like some of the most cutting edge models would decline to negotiate, like, because, you know, sometimes negotiation's a bit of bluster. It's a bit of, hey, well, this is the best you're going to get, even if there's actually a better offer behind it. That's a very different type of approach than I would trust even Fable or Soul 6 or whatever.
I posted about it. So every employee that starts with us has to have a trial day. And one of the tasks that we did for the product folks that we hired was in the trial day, they get in the morning a task of, okay, go to Claude Code and build an agent negotiation. Just show us how agent negotiation was. It's a little bit more specific. And one of the applicants 2 weeks ago built something and showed how the agents actually collude. How those agents actually work together, and then kind of, I think, we can both agree this is the best outcome, and they bribe each other almost. It was fucking amazing to see that.
Well, Max, it's been fantastic. One of my most enjoyable periods of my career working with you and everybody at Taulia. We broke a lot and made a lot of stuff work and learned a lot. So it was fantastic. So thank you very much for joining us from Madrid, Max Ament of Causa Prima.
Max, thank you so much. This has been fantastic.
Thanks so much. Ciao.